Good evening. I'm doing a stand-in talk because I was so busy today that I didn't get a chance to talk in the daylight hours. And had I would have missed what is probably the biggest story, which is the DA for Manhattan County going to actually seek a grand jury indictment of Donald Trump? So Bragg is reportedly, according to the New York Times, about to indict Trump for his porn star hush money. Now, is this sound and fury signifying nothing? Well, we've been here before, and recently, and most recently, I guess, in Georgia, where Miss Imminence can't decide what her case is after 2 years of investigating it. And the legislature is trying to pass a law maybe to get rid of her or prevent her from indicting anyone. Okay, so that's a different story. Bragg, on the other hand, he had a case according to the former DA, and DA Vance, with his hotshot prosecutors, was prepared to and recommended and had decided to indict Trump for a bunch of his financial dealings. So here we are, and the question is, will Bragg be the one, that is the one in history, to indict a president of the United States? It would be a first. We can certainly think, we citizens and we people who have in our mind put this guy in jail 100 times for all the various crimes he's done. He's a one-man crime wave, no question about it. So, Michael Jackson, you may have remembered from one of the Super Bowls. He took a pose at one point, and the wind was blowing on him, and he was barely moving, and he had his arm up in the air, and you just knew the words were, "Wait for it." What was his timing? Well, he had timing, but the American prosecutors don't seem to have any timing. Up and down the East Coast, we have promises galore. But if this is the real thing, Trump will appear or decline to appear next week before the grand jury in Manhattan. And usually that opportunity is offered a person who is going to be indicted. And the New York Times has a long story. You can look it up yourself. The two charges, one is a misdemeanor and the other is a 4-year charge. And there will probably be challenges to it. There always are. And that is no reason to refrain from indicting a criminal, a crimer, as some are saying, like Trump. Now, Trump will be tried in Manhattan. He didn't do so well in past go-ons politically, so I don't think he's going to find an easy jury that was going to be for him. And we're just going to have to wait and see what comes out of this. Now, I haven't broken out the champagne, and like Michael Jackson, I'm going to wait for it. And if it happens, I'll be very glad. I'll wonder why it hasn't happened sooner, but you take your gets where you can. Another story, maybe not as important, but distressing as a policy matter, is that the House and the Senate have decided to overrule the DC crime package that DC put together in its home rule for itself. And the reason I'm upset with Biden is not going to veto it. And it strikes me that it's a double cross for the people of D.C. and for persons of color and for persons who believe in home rule and self-determination. And I think this is a very bad sign. You know, you can't go to South Carolina and celebrate their support of you after it strikes me that you sit in the White House and you say, I really don't know. I don't like this crime bill. And there have been a number of senators, Democrat and Republican, who have stood by it, saying it's not theirs to decide what's good or bad for D.C. in this sense, and that there are some very good changes in the code, which has been, under examination for the last 10 years or so. So that's a mark against Biden. Nobody's perfect, of course, but we seem to see a number of these things, and I don't know if Biden is playing to the center, figuring he couldn't be, quote, liberal, which is like supporting an entire section of our country, highly populated by persons of color, and saying they can't rule themselves. That's plantation talk to me. And this is what we're fighting about, and Biden talks about it as if he's better than that. And I believe he is better than that. But these individual decisions, I don't know, you can't blame it on staff when you are the, quote, decider, as Little Bush would say, W, and you make, in my opinion, the wrong decision for the nation. What should he be willing to give up to be right? I don't know, but doing it wrong, then if you fail, you've done it wrong and you've failed, for example, to be reelected. Across the globe, we are still talking about Zelensky and Ukraine. And we've had a period where, on this particular day, there's been an effort by Putin to bomb them to hell and back. And that's a serious problem. And Zelensky has renewed his request for what he needs to fight this war. And one of them is planes. And I think of Vindeman, who during the last administration, Trump's administration, called out Trump on what was going on in Ukraine. And Vindeman, has been trying to help get the supplies to fight the war there. But he gave an interview now a long time ago, and I don't know what his present view is, but his opinion was that the people in the White House wanted to help enough to show they'd help Ukraine, but not enough to win and beat Russia. So what is this? An attrition of goodwill among the Russian people, a despondency and lack of courage to get it done quickly, but that increases the brutality when you take away the means to defend yourself. And from the beginning, Zelensky has been saying, you got to put us in the air. That's what we need. So put us in the air, give us supplies, and really there should be advisors there. And Vindeman himself has said that fairly recently. In the category of there you go again, we have trains off the rails again, same company. On a day they're on the Hill, talking about how they're going to do better. Beware that satiny voice that sounds so sincere and so helpful and says all the right things and then fails. And today, in Alabama, not Ohio, another one of their trains is off the rails. At least there's no poisons being released. But in order for this to happen, and I haven't heard the studies yet of how it was caused, but usually what it is when the heat from the rail and the wheel, one against the other, is above 250 degrees Fahrenheit. That is above whatever is the current temperature. So if it's 20 degrees or it's 100 degrees, it's that plus 254 degrees as I understand it. And what they do is they try to have hot pots along the rail, and they're supposed to check the temperature as you're going, because it's a great indicator that your wheel or the rail is going to melt and there's going to be a derailment. And some people do understand centrifugal and centripetal force who work on a railroad. And if as a kid you ever ran a train under your tree, you understand the basic principles that a big deal railroad company should know. But once again, we don't do the right thing. We didn't pay the workers what they wanted in sick leave, for the extra time they were putting in on the railroad, which invites a kind of tiredness and inability perhaps to pay attention. And so if they're doing that to their workers, they're doing that in terms of maintenance too. Let's put it off another week or a month. We've seen this in the mines. We've seen it with workers in various industries. America, you would think, had left this long behind us, but it hasn't. And we see it in the environmental debate as well. We'd rather underwrite the use of fossil fuels by putting a burden on your health that we don't have to pay for to avoid by maintaining safety precautions that would save your health. So that money, that goes into profit. So if coal and gas are cheap, in part it's because it's on the backs of working men and women and inhabitants who suffer because of it. So where are we today? I think we're in a place where we have some signs of possible movement. Of course, I hope to God that the New York Times has got this right, because that would be a gift to the nation, one we need. Despite my past criticism of Bragg, give the devil his due if he does the right thing here. I celebrate the fact that Dominion has made us available by its lawsuit for the lies told about that company on the air, on Fox News and elsewhere, so that we get to see the internal hypocrisy and lies that were known to the Fox people, even as they went on the air and said exactly the opposite of what they knew to be true. What is that libel case going to mean? At the very least, it informs the nation. It throws the daylight into the dark room of what goes on with these cheaters. But we have the other side lying just as much. So the 3 million people who watch Fox News at night, they're being told one thing and they believe it, and you probably couldn't change their mind if their life depended on it, and it does. So we see every day that we have to try to cleave to policy that makes sense, common sense, that is fair and just and equitable. And we have to open our arms to all people, and they should be with us. Now, I'm not saying to people who insanely resist us. I'm not saying to people who are lying and cheating. But I am saying that if this nation is going to succeed as a democracy, it's got to get its shit together, and it hasn't done that in a while. Holding people accountable is key. That's why the Bragg thing is important. That's why the Georgia thing is important. That's why Blackjack Smith is important. That's why the state attorney general in New York is important. And we pay a cost every day we do nothing about those who commit crimes, who compromise our nation, compromise our name, compromise our values, disregard them as if it doesn't mean anything at all. And we see evidence that it means something every day we let this go on. So I'm glad I could join you. I had a busy day with the Soil and Water Board, and I was pretty excited about that. And I have matters involving the courts that have kept me busy. And us being away a few days, you come back and there's stuff you have to deal with. So thanks for joining me. I hope you found this helpful, and I'll talk to you again probably on the road tomorrow. All the best. Bye-bye.